Question 5. The student was given a 50-gram sample of solid silver chloride contaminated with solid silver carbonate. The student suggested the following method to obtain the maximum amount of pure dry silver chloride from the sample. So what do we know about this first of all before we have a look at the student's method? We've got a 50-gram sample of solid silver chloride. That's quite a lot. Remember, a gram is about the size of a Smartie or an M&M, so 50 of those is going to fill up a boiling tube pretty much. So tip the solid into a boiling tube. I would suggest you use something like a 250 milliliter beaker instead to give yourself a little bit more room. Add dilute nitric acid. Well, it says here that you've got solid silver carbonate, so it's a good idea to add some acid, because an acid would react with the carbonate and remove the silver carbonate. It would make carbon dioxide, as all carbonates do with acids. However, it says you want to make some silver chloride, the maximum amount of silver chloride. So silver carbonate and nitric acid would make silver nitrate. Surely if you use hydrochloric acid to make silver chloride, it would turn the silver carbonate into additional silver chloride to maximize the yield. So I would suggest that you add nitric acid. It doesn't say how much nitric acid, so how do you know that all the silver carbonate's been used up? I would add an excess of hydrochloric acid. I've got hydrochloric acid available there. I'd use an excess until all the bubbles of carbon dioxide have been made, and then you know that all the silver carbonate's been used up. You haven't got that as an impurity at the end, and you've maximized the amount of silver chloride that you've made. Allow the remaining solid to settle. Decant off the liquid means just pour off the liquid. Well, that's not going to be very efficient, because decanting the liquid isn't as good as something, say for example like filtering, where you're going to remove all of the solid. Decanting the liquid, sometimes some particles of solid are removed with the liquid as well, and also it doesn't dry it off as well, so and you've not got an opportunity to wash it. So I would be filtering it, washing it and drying it. Leave the sample to dry at the end. So let's have a look at this. Boiling tube likely to do too small? Yes. Use a 250 milliliter beaker, a medium-sized beaker, or would any kind of medium-sized beaker. Use hydrochloric acid instead of silver nitrate to make the maximum amount of silver chloride. Use excess acid until no more bubbles are made to make sure that all the silver carbonate's used up. Decanting means you've got a wet solid, and you're also going to lose some of the solid as well. Instead, use a filter and then washed with distilled water. Distilled water is a good idea. Distilled water hasn't got any particles in there, any impurities in there, and therefore distilled water would mean that you're not recontaminating the solid. And then dry, but it already says dry.